Hello and welcome to GreenFleet Talks. My name's Kate Armitage and I'm your host for our discussion today, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dean Hedger, New Business Development and EV Manager at the AA. Morning, Dean.
Thank you, Kate. Morning, and morning to everyone that's listening.
Morning. Dean, we know you've been instrumental in setting up the EV support service offered by the AA. Can you give me a short overview of the services that you provide?
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. Over the last couple of years, we've evolved the EV support service for charge point operators and their end users primarily by offering a back office customer service function whereby any of the charge point operators that appoint us to provide service, we're able to handle calls on their behalf from their customers using their charge posts. They're for a range of different reasons. It could be why somebody wants some advice on how to use the charge post. Maybe they're having a problem getting a charge out of the post, or an issue with their app or payment process. There's the range of different reasons that people call into us, and we give them help and guidance. To give some context around it, we have 7 charge point operators working with us at the moment, and as we closed out March 2022, we'd taken 11,800 calls that month, which was a record on the network. So yeah, it's exciting times, and we're helping to support the growth of this network as we all work towards net zero.
And this is super important. I mean, the service that you offer is 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And that's so important. A lot of these small charge point operators simply can't provide that level of service. But the networks are growing, the number of EV drivers is growing, and it's absolutely crucial that if they do have a problem at a charge point, they can speak to someone there and then.
Yeah, and do you know what? What's of particular interest is a lot of the customers that we work with are startups or were startups and started off very, very small with us, and we're watching them grow, and as they grow, we grow the team, and we've refined and developed the service alongside them over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we've got a few more lined up for this year. I think at least another 3 or 4 customers that we're talking to now should come live at some point during 2022.
Brilliant. And you're training your mechanics as well?
We have retrained our fuel assist technicians to be able to go out and attend safe isolation work at charge posts. So yeah, it's been a long time in the pipeline there, but we've got everybody trained up now.
Right. And
we're starting to work with a couple of key partners on a kind of pilot basis to get that off and running as well. So exciting times, yeah.
It is exciting times. As you know, the government recently unveiled the electric vehicle infrastructure strategy, which is called Taking Charge. Today, Dean, you and I are going to be discussing the important role that EV charging has in the fleet electrification strategy. So we're going to kick off. We used to talk about range anxiety, which focuses on the capabilities of the vehicle, but that in some respects has been replaced by charge anxiety. So a fear that the fragmented nature of the network will hamper charging. So what are the problems of the public charging network currently, and what's being done to improve it?
I think your point on range anxiety to charge anxiety is a valid one. It's not so much people worried about can they find a charger, but will it be free when I get there? We've seen from the calls that we handle and the nature of the calls that we've taken in that the networks, they are improving, they are growing. There's different types of questions and different natures of questions that are coming through as we go through time, but there are still problems occurring, and it still needs significant investment to support the drivers and grow the network effectively. But what's really important, I think, is that it's not just about land grabbing and throwing in chargers anywhere. It's about making sure the right charger at the right speed is in the right location, and also that once this network gets in place, that it is maintained and it is kept in good working order. And I think what we've seen from some of the legacy equipment that hasn't been the case over time, and some charge post operators are getting maybe an unfairly bad rep at times because they have inherited old equipment that they are now going through a process of rectifying. But that's just what's gone before, and certainly doesn't seem to be what we're looking forward towards.
That I think that's a really good point, Dean, and perhaps not that we would expect fleet drivers to know this, or particularly it wouldn't make any difference. But I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 CPOs that have taken over other charging networks, and as you've said, it's legacy equipment. It's not what they would have installed, and it takes time to upgrade that equipment and to upgrade the network connection, because we're also seeing now that people want to charge at 175 kilowatts, and a lot of these only have 50 kilowatt connections, which again, with the consumer experience, can be disappointing, if you're expecting more power.
Yeah, no, absolutely, we see that.
Yeah. All right, good. Now, and just very quickly, in your role at the EAA, or offering the support service, you must have some good insights in terms of that consumer experience. What can you just, the top couple of things that people ring about?
The top thing they ring about by a long way is, I can't get a charge out of the machine. The reasons behind that are tenfold.
Yeah.
But that's what makes the phone ring.
Yeah.
Most often is, I can't effect a charge. It's closely followed by, I can't stop a charge, ironically. That comes up as well as cable stuck, stuck in the car, stuck in the post. It varies, actually. It's a ratio of 2 to 1 on being stuck in the post as opposed to the car.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most common things, but lots of advice given, lots of guidance given. It's all still new. It's all still very new. And
it is. Yeah.
I think we're going to see that continue as more people adopt EVs. Yeah. We're going to very much be in the learning phase for a little while yet.
Great. Okay, so let's move on then. When it comes to workplace charging, what should companies consider ensuring any charge points installed are future proofed? Not a word I particularly like, but
yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
We're all desperately rubbing our crystal balls on this one, aren't we, to see what the future does hold. And again, things like speed of charging, speed the vehicles can take a charge, capability of batteries, all this stuff is anecdotally very much being talked up over the years to come, but the organizations have got to act now. And so when it comes to planning their workplace charging, I think they're going to have to think about the demand that's going to be put onto those charge posts and how that will change over time, who's going to want to use them, the type of vehicles and how long they need to charge. So they've almost got to forecast the whole thing at the same time. Depends on what type of employees they have in the workplace. When charging at work, is it going to be relied upon? Will it just happen to be a luxury? If you drive an EV to work and back, will you still be entitled to get a charge? And how long is that vehicle going to be parked for? How many chargers do you need in your workplace for EVs to ensure that your workers on a site don't impact any maybe commercial vehicles that also need charging on the same site and to continue about their daily tasks?
Yeah.
There's a lot to be considered.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dean, and I, in my head, it kind of breaks down into 3 different user groups, because you've got depot-based vehicles, vans, the workhorses. You've got company cars, but you do also have employees who are driving their own vehicle to work, who are potentially dependent on getting a top-up charge to get them home again. It's definitely a bit of crystal ball gazing in terms of how quickly that demand is going to ramp up.
And it's also type of charger to type of vehicle.
Yeah.
You can't always put a commercial vehicle on the same charge post as you can a car, because the cables, it's very simple stuff sometimes, but sometimes the cables are just not long enough
Yeah.
to go on where the van needs to be kind of parked safely to take the charge.
Yeah, I have heard someone saying that they have a company policy where the vehicles have to be reversed into parking spaces for health and safety reasons. And if the charge point is at the front of the vehicle,
Yeah.
it suddenly gets scuppered. And what about for fleets who are only just starting out on their electrification strategy? Where should they begin? What process should they go through to assess what vehicles can be swapped for electric?
I think it's understanding the types and models of EVs available. By looking in detail at this, they'll be able to understand exactly what sort of vehicle will work for their organization, and consider how the drivers would benefit from going electric, because it's not going to work for everybody right now. There's things such as, suitable mileage covered, a very simple calculation, but very much understanding the range of that vehicle that you're looking to put onto your fleet. How does that impact the normal operations of that vehicle? It's not just on cars either. You're looking at loads the vehicles will take, additional passengers they might need to take, equipment around the local area. All of this will have an impact on range, and they've got to speak to the source of where they're obtaining vehicles from to understand impact as much as possible before introducing anything.
Yeah, and it seems that a lot of those considerations that you mentioned are probably more acute with vans, where you are carrying, a fixed amount of equipment. You've got to keep an eye on the payload, the size of the vehicle, like you say, the ability to take passengers. And there's less choice in the van market at the moment as well. So
it's also on the route, isn't it? So with the route that drivers take, in some areas, perhaps more rural ones, there is more mileage covered by vehicles, even if they are on a kind of loop and back to depot. So is it worth looking at what public charging is available on that network, so someone knows that when they're on their route, the likelihood of them being able to find a charge is available? And I'm not talking about like 150 kilowatt halfway round, because what they're going to find is, as we've mentioned earlier in this, there's someone on it.
Yeah. And possibly someone else waiting.
But also get the drivers on board as you are doing this. Don't just take a load of diesel vehicles away from them and give them some unfamiliar electric vehicles, because they probably had conversations with friends about how EVs, they don't, there's not enough range, you can't get them charged, the chargers never work, and all these things that we hear about as the challenges to EV adoption. If you can bring the fleet on board, or certainly some key operatives around the fleet on your journey, then create the swell and make the changes where possible.
EV advocates is so important, and actually, from talking to many fleets over the years, the fleet managers are quite often surprised at how quickly the employee adapts to driving EV and then says, "Oh, I'm not going back." I
was in a meeting years ago of a workforce of an organisation who had, I'm not mentioning any names on this one, who had a negative experience with the brand that they were using for their vans. And I sat in a room full of these operatives, and one of them said, "If you give me another one of those X's, I'm going to break it." And you're like, yeah, this workforce is not engaged with the change.
No, that is not what you want to hear. So key message is get your employees on board early and make sure they are advocates and not detractors.
Definitely.
So in 2021, Dean, was a busy year for you. It was also the most successful year to date for electric vehicle sales. We have had some challenges with semiconductor shortages and other issues, not least of which the conflict in the Ukraine currently, which is causing a delay in the supply of vehicles. How should fleets accommodate this in their electric vehicle strategy?
I think the best thing fleets can do at the moment, given the challenges in supply chains, is start to put their EV transition plan together. It doesn't have to happen overnight,
No.
but it can't happen overnight. It quite simply, that is just not possible right now. So why not, whilst the risk of disruption, I suppose, is minimal, because you can't run out and order, 20 EVs overnight and then just ta-da, they're in the depot in the morning. Take the time to do the research, take the time to engage the fleet, the team, the drivers. So you're going to minimize disruption in the long run, let the drivers, build the confidence in the product, understand the transition to electric, and take the time to get it right whilst we're in the situation that we're in, for sure.
I think that's great advice, Dean, and you're absolutely right. I think historically, upgrading your diesel fleet of vehicles has potentially been as quick as overnight in some instances, but those days are gone. So plan well ahead. You've got an opportunity to get it right first time.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Great. Well, Dean, it has been a pleasure talking to you. That is about all we've got time for. And thank you to the AA for joining GreenFleet Talks.
Lovely. Thanks, Kate. It's been good to be here today.
It's been a pleasure.
Everyone who's been listening.
And thank you for watching. Please tune into GF365 again soon.